Pop out the chat. Hey there, everybody. This is the my strong second brew of mead. And of course, cheese. Anybody who wants to drink along, fine, drink along. Anybody who can't, that's okay. What is up all? There is already too many people to mention by name. Lots of regulars. Lots of channel members. Hello. That's right, Ben, you've made it. Cheese of healing. I like it. So today we're talking about undead, more dragons, and more creatures on my channel. So we're going to be concentrating on a lot of remastering of videos. So we've got dragon magic items and dragon magic coming up, silver dragons. We're also going to be starting on the first of the undead remastered videos. And this is highlighted by the fact that just recently there's been 3 content claims on my my older videos for the old music that I used to use. Nowadays I use Epidemic Sound pretty much exclusively for the music on my videos, apart from stuff that I've paid for and had composed myself. So yeah, just highlights that when you are making videos, make sure that you use content which you're allowed to use. Because it seems like the companies, it's always third-party companies that do this claiming on behalf of artists. It's never actually the artists themselves. What they do is they just troll through millions of different videos with algorithms to spot music, and then they make the claim on the video so that they get the revenue from it. They hold that revenue and then they try and sell it to other people for a commission. Hey, thanks, Josh. Drinking along with water is what I'm guessing is alcohol of some type, and heat don't mix well. Yeah, true. Yeah, this is my own homebrewed mead. I've really gotten into brewing mead this year. Dragon goodness, that's right. Happy medium. Hey, Jared. Remaster the Kenda video by deleting it from history. Well, I haven't actually made a Kenda video. Is the Drow video still good? So far, so good, yeah. I'm not happy with the audio quality of the Drow video, although, of course, it's been a very popular video over time. And I've just had two other videos pass over the 100,000 view mark just recently, so that's pretty good. Yeah, the Undead Remastered series is going to be good. I was going to start off with vampires, but somebody else is making a vampire video and I didn't want to step on their toes. So I'm going to be probably concentrating on the simple undead first. And first up would be skeletons. The recipe for mead is pretty simple. I just use M05 yeast, which is a slow, cold tolerant and high alcohol tolerant white wine yeast. And I use just multiflora honey from the King Country region here in New Zealand. I've got it in 5 kg buckets because I like supporting local businesses here particularly during the pandemic. And I bought a bulk of that, and I've got a large container that I just used sterilizing agent on and just washed out, and just water, honey, and yeast. I also got some nutrients, which is low. I think it's mostly, I think it's like a nitrogen type based stuff. I'm not entirely sure, but I just used like a teaspoon of that for the batch, and it's good to go. I know there's a lot of people who add fruit and stuff to their yeast. To their mead. I don't. I just like mead as it is, as a honey wine. A merch idea for what? Hey Hugoon, thank you. Can a cleric of Bahamut also be a cleric of Tamara because they're on the of? Yeah, sure. I was just reading about that today, actually, in the Forgotten Realms guide, and we've gotten onto the section talking about gods and followers, and most people in D&D worlds, right, where there's pantheons of gods, will end up kind of gravitating towards one god or the other. But for the majority of people on the world, they worship a pantheon of gods. Depending on what they do in that day is who they're going to be praying to. But over time, one god or the other will resonate with them more than any other. Clerics and priests and stuff are kind of unusual in the population because they concentrate on one god from a very early stage. But for most people, they're poly. It's made from honey. That's right, the 13th warrior. Yeah, so yes, absolutely, your cleric can worship more than one god at a time. It's not unusual. In fact, they should probably talk about that in a D&D live stream or something, I reckon. What's your greatest enemy yet, Robert? Drunk ghosts that spread drunken joy. Is it Emil? I didn't realise. I don't know why it's in the playlist twice. I shall go and correct that. Give me that thick polytheism pantheon. That's the word I was looking for. Polytheism. True, Regulus. Yeah, Undermountain is kind of overwhelming though. Like, if you've got the expectation that your players are going to explore all of the terrain that you put in front of them in your campaign, you're going to be sorely mistaken. You never can tell exactly where they're going to go. I always get a little bit worried about people who are world building without any input from their players. Like, if you're world building as a hobby, within the hobby sort of thing, like if you like world building just for the world building's sake, that's perfectly valid. That's a perfectly good way to enjoy D&D. I would say that's D&D solo play, is actually designing worlds and towns and dungeons and all that sort of stuff. But when it actually comes down to hitting the table and playing the game with a group of friends, if you have done that a lot of world building and put an awful lot of depth and background into everything, then you're going to be too tempted to over-explain things to your players to the point where their brain will start to ooze out of the ears, and they just will be like, ugh. They'll feel like they're getting railroaded into whatever world setting you've made for them. Or they're expected to carry out some sort of role that's not really under their control. So it's almost taking away their agency. If you world build with the input of the other people in your gaming group, then you can build that world together. And they'll feel, if you'll know you're on the right track when they actually want to run games in that world themselves. And you can step into your own world as a player. So that's the sweet spot. Hey, Jack, thanks. Money for the cheese? No, I haven't covered Faerie yet. They're on the list of things to do. I almost feel like I need to cover elves first before I get into Faerie, because Faerie are, the demonic tiefling version of elves. So it pays to have a really good understanding of what went on in elven history in the Forgotten Realms before you really understand how detrimental the Faerie really were to that, and the reason why they're sort of buried under dungeons and things. In the book Gods of Magic, Pathfinder 2nd edition, I'm pretty sure there is some stuff about... Yeah, probably. What's my favourite Undead comics, Nut? Well, I do tend to use incorporeal undead quite often. But I mean, you can't really go wrong with skeletons and zombies. Mainly skeletons. I think I use skeletons quite often because I use them as like a. I'm always looking for innovative ways to use skeletons in my game, and to make them far more interesting than they at first appear. Can I do a video on combat scenarios, LC? Yeah, I can do that. Alcoholic ectoplasm, I like it. Divine teamwork, yeah, that's one, Matt. Is there a god of pantheons or divine teamwork, basically? Well, so 4th edition had Arathis, who was the goddess of civilizations, who I thought was really interesting, and I wish they'd carried on with that whole sort of plot that was going on in the background with Arathis trying to create an over-pantheon sort of thing. Yeah. Go get your Mead fighter. Yeah, Fairy, don't get... Tieflings are from devils. Fairy are from demons. It's an entirely different kettle of fish. There are the nation of Narfel, for instance, in Narfel had a long history of demons sort of breeding into the population of the leadership there. So Narfel is this really dangerous place. But that whole region there of Aglarond and stuff has got some dark and mysterious stuff going on. I'd love to talk about those regions around Thay at some point. Yeah, writing with a D&D hobby, true. Hey, thanks, Josh. What do you think of Strand as a character? Or Strad? Strand? Oh, I can't sell the mead. I can't sell the mead that I brew. That would be illegal. Do you think halflings could raise a lizard folk, or is this silly? The halflings would put the lizard folk. They would go on a quest to put the lizard folk back with his people, his or her. They would not raise the lizard folk among their own kind. They just wouldn't do it. That would not be fair to the lizard folk. East Yorkshire, nice. Yeah, Skull Lords are cool. Yeah, I can't sell the mead, sorry. Have I played Tomb of Annihilation? Yes, I have. Are you talking about the video game or the actual campaign? Oh, Strahd. What do you think of Strahd as a character? I think he's a classic vampire. He's Bram Stoker's Dracula, essentially. Yeah, well, Brazil, you can. Can you sell Brazil? Can you sell alcohol legally in Brazil? Halflings are good people. That's true. Gourd bottles. Well, you're here, Lysander, and you've only missed like 10 minutes. It's fine. Yeah. Dire Halfling. Represent. Could sell a letter with complimentary mead. That is. I don't think customs would see it that way, Damien. Like, I don't even know what the rules of sending mead or sending alcohol via mail is. It would probably be prohibitively expensive, probably against the law. You'd probably have some problems getting it through customs in whatever country it's going to. Do you think it would be possible to have an item that hides you from the gods? No, generally speaking, not. It would have to be pretty extraordinary. What do you think is the eventual fate of the D&D universe? For my own D&D universes, it changes every single time I play a campaign. And I really leave it up and open. As for everything else, I don't really think about what the end what the end Armageddon or thing of the D&D universe is, because it's a moot point. It's never going to happen. We always play D&D, so it's eternal. It just goes on and on forever. And also, I wouldn't want to dictate it so that other people put that in their games like it's rote or something. Are humans the most adopting race in D&D? Yeah, maybe. Don't forget, there were the prior civilizations of the Sarok and the Batraki and the Aerie, and they took in a lot of species over time as well and altered them to suit their purposes. Remember, humans take in creatures and change them as well, so you end up with sub-races of other races because they've interacted with humans. They become not domesticated, but altered somehow. What would halflings raise amongst their own? Something probably like they might try and civilize goblins or something like that. Maybe. Halflings and gnomes get on very well together, so they would take in a gnome child that's been left behind from a raid or something like that. They would raise similar sort of creatures as themselves. Crypt Thing would be a great video for an undead. What is Crypt Thing? He's a white, right? It's got to be a white. Or a mummy, perhaps. Oh, yeah. The Vlakith video was a lot of fun to do, actually. And also, oh man, you have no idea how much trouble I had with that script for the chitin. Mead and cheese is a pretty good combination, especially on a Sunday morning. What? I know in my hobby of Warhammer 40k, writers are trying to incorporate bi-gender orcs. Orcs don't have a gender. What the hell? That's the whole point of orcs. They're an alien life form that reproduces via spores. That's crazy. Yeah, orcs don't have a gender. Like, you see the pictures of their anatomical drawings and stuff. They don't have bits. They don't have it. It's just not there. Kind of ridiculous. So sure, I guess they could be whatever gender they wanted to represent. You have a campaign set in Ravenloft after a failed Spelljammer session. Dude, there's a story right there. DM used giant skeletons of your choice, piloted with a version of Spelljamming Helm in Gladiator Arena. That's awesome. Yeah, because skeletons are really, they're animated organic matter that's got a dark spirit inside, which is doing the moving around. So the skeleton is really just a container that contains a dark force. When you smash up the skeleton, you ruin its vehicle. You've never met a mushroom with identity issues before. Exactly. They're more like lichen, actually. Yeah. Or Corporal Carrot. Tall, red-headed human raised by dwarves. Hey, William. Eduardo, yeah. So we've run I did a little test, couple of sessions of Warhammer 40k using the 4th edition D&D rules. So a squad of Space Marines who the player characters landed on Faerun and basically acted like Space Marines encountering creatures from Faerun, and it was bloodbath, predictably. Oh, no, I've got Mercurius. I've got other dragons that I can paint. I wouldn't bother either. No, I would never paint that one. I think it looks just fine the way it is. I've got other great big dragons and stuff that I need to paint. So many miniatures that I need to paint. Those mortals totaled my bone body. That's true. Morning, Cams. Do human and DW? What's DW? Orc versus orcs, yeah. Orcs is the biggest and the strongest. No, the Space Marines would have exterminated us. They would have done an exterminatus on Faerun for sure. Why put human traits on Xenos? It's silly. Yeah, I know. It's like you're disrespecting the alienness of the species. It's like if you can't handle the fact that orcs don't have a gender, then you're just as bigoted as anybody else. They don't. They're ace. They don't have a gender. Orcs are orcs. Their gender is warrior. Their role in society is violence. Their place in society is how many orcs are there and how many orcs have you killed, how many things have you killed, therefore that's your place in society. It's like, it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. How complicated do you really need to be in a tabletop war game? Role-playing games, sure, get crazy with it, but you know. Learn to love the Emperor. Yeah, an orc invasion of Torah would be something to behold. It'd be like, okay, we're all in it together now. Hey Josh, thank you. Space Marines would use Faerun to train the initiatives. Yeah. Their initiates, like scouts and stuff down on Faerun. Yeah. I mean, you can imagine they would have like a secret chapter house somewhere. Like, for instance, those strange glass-like structures in the vast swamp just outside of Cormier could be actually where they just randomly take the most powerful warriors that Faerun produces, and they're like, congratulations, you're a scout. Here's your black carapace and your gene seed. Go for it. It's actually it's actually one of their recruiting hell worlds. Hey, thanks, Robert. Yeah, here's an idea. You could do a live stream painting a miniature and let the chat vote on the colours you use. Oh, no. I actually did that a long time ago, kind of, with the Beholder that I produced, and it ended up being electric blue with metallic spikes and spines, which I don't know whether the person who eventually got that miniature decided to stick with that colour scheme or not. Hey, Fluff. Finally caught the stream. Need to go to bed. 1 a.m. here in Sweden. Loved hearing about your Norwegian heritage. Skull. Yep, got to go and visit Norway again at some point. And Sweden. Have some Raksfisk salad. Why not? Put myself to the test. Eat it properly, not straight out of a tin in a closed room like a savage. Fluff, no, resist sleep. That's true. I mean, for what they were designed for, Orc Society is working perfectly functionally. Weresharks. Are you the person who's been... yeah, Weresharks. Alright, I'm going to add Weresharks to the list. God damn it. Weresharks and Kaifon. Also had a request for Zas Tam recently. And Dendar the Night Serpent. Mercane, City of Union. And my own personal request, Undead Vegetables. When someone casts any spell, does the Goddess of Magic always know? Yeah, technically she would. Oh, really? What voice actor are you paying? Anybody I know? If I'm visiting Sweden, I'd best be careful, AJ. Why? Which god would help me best genocide the elven folk in human society? Cyric. I don't know where I would go, honestly. I'd probably spend a bit of time there. I didn't say anything was wrong with weresharks. Spider shark. No, I haven't seen that yet. Ghost of Caliban, the saga of Luther, of legendary Lord of the Dark Angel story. Ooh, that sounds good. Any Abyss, Nine Hells, or any good ecologies you're considering upcoming? Well, I mean, the Kitane we kind of like, or Kitane we kind of like a ecology per se of the arachnid folk and how the arachnid folk in the Underdark kind of operate in the Upper Dark or the Middle Dark. I probably would like to go and check out Kalimshan and the Shar and that sort of broad stretch of the Forgotten Realms, because we got the Border Kingdoms that's come out recently, and I want to go and visit Chisinta and Unther and Mulhorund and what it's like after Abir is separated from Tyrell and what's going on with the Dragonborn, for instance. You know, that would be interesting to me. Oh, lutefisk is just pickled fish. You have it on something. You have it on other things. You don't necessarily eat it by itself. It's like anchovies and stuff. You have it with something else. You don't just sit down and eat a tin of anchovies. Have Quasit survived in 5th edition? I imagine so. Yep. Do you feel like having any more advanced version of the Demiplane spell would allow a person to make something like what the effects of the Rod of Security does? Yeah. Don't forget, there's a lot of lost magic in Dungeons and Dragons now that we have several editions in. I see nothing wrong with bringing back old spells, and also players should be encouraged to spend the time and coin to research new spells and stuff, particularly if they're emulating spells that they found in older resources and stuff. Or you might have a wizard who is fascinated in learning the secrets of dragon magic, for instance, and the spell that allows you to summon a humanoid familiar would be just as viable for a humanoid to cast that as a dragon. So that would be really interesting. Got any any general DM's Guild recommendations? Well, let's see. I got this from the DM's Guild. I I got this from the DM's Guild. Or did I? Or Drive Through RPG. Oh, there's a DM's Guild, yeah. So this is Faiths of the Forgotten Realms, and there's also a Faiths of the Forgotten Realms 2. The only thing I wish they put in here was some unique spells for different pantheons, which I think would be really cool. Because I was looking for some of the spells that Denier has of moving a magical glyph from one location to another, and also the ability to transcribe books just using a spell is really good. But there's all sorts of stuff in here. They've got different domains and domain spells and things. I was just talking about, and different oaths and stuff. There's tons of information in here and some really good artwork. And it's got a good feel to the pages. Yeah. Oath of the Lawkeeper's Paladin. Oh, maybe there is more stuff in here. I'm getting so many books, I'm having trouble keeping up with them all, actually, to be honest. What other stuff have I got recently? Shining South. What's this one? Mutants of the Vast Swamp, a Dungeons & Dragons adventure for 2nd to 4th level characters. Tons of different books. Thanks, Robert. Well, no, here we go. Okay, AJ, Sharknado elemental stats, legendary actions, lair actions, and regional effects. How do we make this work? Sharknado. I would say just make it a spell. That would be easier, really. You do, in fact, eat tins of anchovies, but only when kippers are unavailable. Well, that's okay. To each their own. Who would win, Spider Goddess versus Slaanesh? Slaanesh would win, for sure. I've got a Exploring Forgotten Realms where I talk about Candlekeep in some detail. I don't have the new book on Candlekeep, though, which is coming out soon. And I'm still waiting on for my Border Kingdoms book, which is taking its sweet time to get here. This is why I can't review books in time, because I live in New Zealand and it takes that long for them to get here. So unless some publisher smiles on my ragged self and sends me a book in advance of everybody else, there's no way I could ever get a review out before everybody else has done theirs. No, I don't have any of the D&D cards from back in the 90s. I've seen them around. We are the best fandom. We could be the best fandom. Are there any soul-stealing magics? Yes, there are. Could I create a recommended reading list? I wouldn't say what I do recreational reading. If I want to sit down with a good book, it's usually a sci-fi. Like I read so much D&D stuff, I sort of take a break by getting away from the D&D stuff. If I could only read all of the Horus Heresy books, that would be awesome too. What's a good book to sit down and read? Serpent Kingdoms, Lost Empires of Faerun is a really good one as well. The Underdark book for 3.5 edition is one of the best books that they've ever written for just sitting down and reading. Oh, not that one. That one? Well, was it this one? Could be. Yeah, so there are some really... Oh, no, it's this one. Yeah, this book here is one of the best books for sitting down and just reading an entire source book, cover to cover. Although it's 4th edition, it's a really good read. Like the Dungeon Mastery Guide from Pathfinder 1 was really good to sit down and read. And also, the Dungeon Master's Guide from 5th edition is a really good sit down and read from cover to cover. See, this is why I don't do versus videos. Yeah, soul stealing and yeah, is the 9th level spell in prison. That's exactly what it is. Do dwarves dislike humans or elves more? They dislike elves more. Ah, you're an evil character and you're evil characters, and you land at Candlekeep. Oh, Ed, you may see that all of the Salvador books are behind me on the shelf there. All of them, apart from 4. Have I read a Plague of Demons sci-fi book? No. So some of my favourite sci-fi authors are David Zindel, Peter F. Hamilton. I think is probably the Arthur C. Clarke of our times. Honestly, his books are so damn good. And a few others. I've read a lot of classic sci-fi as well, so Poul Anderson and Frank Herbert and Asimov and Heinlein, all those guys. What's the difference between a nature cleric and a druid anyway? I guess a nature cleric can do other stuff. Druids don't worship, they don't pray to gods per se. So druids can have truck with primordials, for instance, and elementals, whereas clerics are solely reliant on one deity or other in particular. Happy Noodle Boy, how are my eyes? Have you had any laser surgery done on them? No, they're fine. They're aging like anybody, but they're okay. I don't need any glasses yet. Like, my eyes are good enough so that I don't need to. Like, I'm reading A4 12-point font on my wall 4 feet away. So they're pretty good. This eye is better than this eye. Can you share a good concept for an evil PC that one or other of your players have ever played? No, we generally don't play evil characters in our games. That's just one thing that my local groups have never really done. Oh, I've had groups nearby with people that I know who have run evil campaigns successfully for long periods of time, but generally speaking, no, we don't play evil characters. I think one of the most epic battles that I've had LC was against skeletons, actually. Wave after wave after waves of skeletons, because they kept getting boosted and rezzed by an orc shaman that we didn't take care of right at the start of the battle. So he retreated behind all the skeletons and just sent waves of skeleton at us, and God help us, we fought them all. Hey, thanks, Fred. Yeah, I did do an orc video. I've done two different orc videos, one on Warhammer 40k orcs and one on Faerunian orcs. So I've covered orcs. Actually, my Faerunian orc one was relatively recent. Hello, Moniji. Just asking because the reflections flash. I'm guessing lighting is just odd. Oh, what? It's reflecting off my eyes? You guys want to use an evil character who uses sports to impress his superiors. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a personal preference. There's nothing wrong with running an evil campaign if you want to. I just don't generally do it. That's all. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying I don't, or I haven't. I'm not even saying I wouldn't. I'm just saying that I haven't up until now. What are my thoughts on 5th edition Dragonborn? I love them. I love everything 5th edition, apart from possibly Phoenixes. Wendigo in D&D considered undead? I don't know. Is there an official Wendigo for D&D? Twin Shield Guardians, yeah, that would be a pretty epic fight. When was the last time one of your characters died for good, and how? It's been a while since I've played a D&D game where my character actually died. I don't know. Your favourite spell is Dispel Magic. My ambient illumination does seem brighter than usual. Hang on. There you go. Darkness. Ethan, one of the famous wizards of D&D who cloned himself over and over and over again, I think it was Val Sharoon, was it? Or somebody else. Kind of went insane because of that. So insanity, I think, is one of the side effects of using the clone spell over and over and over again. Although it's not really written into the rules per se. For things like that, when your players start to go overboard on something, feel free to introduce unknown side effects, because what they're doing is they're doing things which haven't been done before with that spell. And you could say, well, you pushed a boundary that the people who designed the spell never thought would be pushed. So, they didn't count on somebody doing this over and over and over again. My knowledge of orcs is the orkiest. Will archliches or good aligned liches have a separate video from standard or evil liches? Yeah, possibly. I mean, Balnorn and stuff have got different name than liches. So, yeah, I suppose so. They suffer the same problem that most other good aligned creatures do, which is they're kind of boring. I guess because I'm moving away from sort of combat statistics and edition-specific statistics on things, and mainly just talking about the concept of those things and their ecology and history and attitude and culture and stuff, it makes it more interesting to talk about good aligned creatures in that regard, because really their importance in the story is less statistically relevant and more story and plot-based relevant. So it opens the door to talking more about, good creatures and things. Manchun, that's the one. Why do I think Mordenkainen's Disjunction wasn't brought into 5th edition? Because the idea of losing your items, your magic items, just seems to break people's minds, I guess. I don't know. Like, for instance, magical items don't have hit points and stuff, and they never talk about damaging or destroying armor in 5th edition. Like, where's the rules for your armor breaking because you've taken too much damage? Nobody, like, they seem to have ruled out anybody's toys being taken away in 5th edition, which is kind of sucky. What inspired the Any Dungeon, Any Dragon? There was a combination of things. One of the things was just some conversations on Twitter about people who were getting very anti D&D for political reasons, and it kind of pissed me off a bit. Yep, I'll be doing the Eldritch Giants. Hi, Nikki. Coming off of 4th edition, how could anyone not love 5th edition? 4th edition had its thing, but I mean, it had its day, and it's a perfectly workable system. I would probably run a game of 4th edition if that's all that was going, but you know, I'd gravitate towards 5th edition because it's the new thing, it's the new hotness, and it's really good. Ambient illumination. Well, I can't tell you. What can I tell you? I don't know. Yeah, in 5th edition, there's no sundering. It's finished, gone, done. The Spell Plague and the Sundering are done in 5th edition. They're over and done with. The continents have gone back to where they were pretty much. There's been some major changes, but like Lantern is back, Lurin is back, Estegund is back, Dambrath is back, although the population has been drastically affected. We won't get into that because I know somebody will get horribly triggered by the fact that the Dark Elves have gone. Yeah, like, people have an objection when I say that Dungeons and Dragons is the best D&D. It's the best role-playing game in the world. Like, it's the greatest role-playing game in the world. And they're like, well, I wouldn't call it the best Dungeons and Dragons, the best role-playing game. It's just like, when you walk up to somebody and say, I play role-playing games, they're like, what? You say, I play D&D. Oh, Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah. That's all you really need to say. Like, people say, oh, what are you going to do tonight? Oh, I'm going to go and play some D&D. When in actual fact, you're going to be playing, you know, Heroes Unlimited with ninjas and super spies with a crossover into Rifts. But if you said that to somebody, they wouldn't understand what you're talking about because they understand what Dungeons and Dragons is because it's in the mainstream media. So, in that regard, it's the oldest. It's the generator of our hobby. What changes they make in D&D vastly affects the entire hobby. So, yeah. Statistically, thematically, in our hearts and minds, Dungeons and Dragons is the granddaddy of our hobby. It's not the greatest game for every community inside the hobby, but it is the generator of the hobby itself. So it's the greatest game in the hobby. Hey, thanks to Wall. I never liked a character just arbitrarily losing their high-end magic items in-game. That's the equivalent of a dude, where's my car moment in real life. Yeah, I mean, if it's story-based and it has a good resolution to it and there's a good outcome to it, or if there's a reason that makes logical sense in the world, in the story, then, yeah, obviously the players are going to be on board because it should be part of the risk-reward system. If there's a risk that they've taken, which the possible outcome of that is losing a magical item, then that's part and parcel of it. If you don't have any risk, you don't really have any reward in your game. I've been playing Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds Expanding Fronts. Great mod. No vampire LARP stream. Yeah, poor dice rolls and mostly bad decisions is really what. Well, like, not even bad decisions, but just risky decisions. Decisions that have consequences attached to them. How do I make my timelines if I do for general DM organization? Oh, um, I have lots of random roll tables that I use on the regular to save me a lot of time. I just basically keep notes of whatever I'm improving as a DM. I'm a very improv DM. Although I hate using the word improv because it implies improv on a stage show, and improv has got... Here's my issue with the word improv in D&D. Improv is an entire culture of stage performance. And I understand that people who do improv see a lot of crossover between role-playing games and stage show improv performances, because how D&D is now being presented to the public in sort of breaking into mainstream is through performance on YouTube streams and live shows and things, and that's perfectly fine. But improv is its own culture, it's its own hobby, it's its own performance art that has an entirely different language and way of doing things. So I think it's a very viable thing to say that we could have an improv rule book for Dungeons and Dragons, which is separate from sitting down with a group of friends at a table. There's a lot of skill crossover, but there's also a lot of cultural mangling that would happen along the way if you just used improv and D&D willy-nilly. So it can get very distorted. So that's my main, it's a little bit cringy when I hear people talking about improving, and the way that improv riffs off other people is collaborative in the entire group of people on stage, whereas Dungeons and Dragons, it has a games master or a dungeon master who is really driving the story. If you went totally by improv, everybody drives the story equally. So everybody could say, no, that doesn't happen, this happens, or yes, that happens, and this happens as well. But the dungeon master occasionally has to say, yes, that happens, but this happens. And sometimes what happens is disastrous. So I don't know if I'm really expressing it very well. I have a cautionary cringe to people and improv. I can see where it's snuck into the hobby, though. It's come through, the actors and stuff who are using Dungeons and Dragons, and have now found we can get on camera and play Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, thanks to Wall. Stanchskate, thanks. What do you think about the attack the character sheet method? I don't know what that is. You'll have to explain it to me. Do you think we'll get an underwater adventure for 5th edition? Theros. Theros has got an underwater section. I think so. I can't sort of jump out of the stream and go and check, but I think Theros has got an underwater section. I think I saw that in the index. Thanks to Wall. I think a character should be able to lose things. I just think it shouldn't be arbitrary. Yeah, I agree with you. After all, if you go outside and your car is just gone, you would freak out. Yeah, for sure. But also, that could be the impetus that starts your entire adventure. I suppose you could say, let's say you've got a family heirloom, which is a +4 sword of soul stealing, and it's way overpowered for your character at this particular point in the campaign, and it goes missing. And the reason why they go on the adventure in the first place is to recover their heirloom sword. And by the time they finally get it, they're a high enough level that it's actually relevant. And they use it against the big bad guy, and it'll, they bring it back home and stuff. That's a viable option. Disney is the new evil of the world. I suppose so. D&D Improv is running my... What? Accidental Therapy is in my D&D Improv is running my D&D. What do the evil gods use as their personal servants? I've got that question before. It's do they still use angels? No, they use other things, generally speaking. Angels are the evolved form of archons in 5th edition, so it's gone back to how it was, pretty much. Different evil gods use different servants and things. you're muse driven in your storytelling. Yeah, pretty much. Dude, where's my wand of Orcus? I like it. Do I have a favourite world or plane? Yeah, I pretty much like. I gravitate towards either Sigil or as the base of operations, or the Forgotten Realms. And if it's the Forgotten Realms, then typically it'll be Cormier, because back in the day, like not even that long ago in 5th edition, Cormier and the Sword Coast, like the Sword Coast was the frontier, and you had the Savage Frontier. All of these other places to the east, Chesenta and Malharand and Thay, were all just like, they weren't mapped out or anything. They were just strange places that merchants and stuff come from. It wasn't until later that all sort of got fleshed out. But for the longest time, like if you ask questions about Forgotten Realms of like Ed Greenwood, for instance, he has got very detailed notes and stuff on Cormier. Cormier is very much the centre of Forgotten Realms information and lore. And the Dales, of course. It's true, corporatism doesn't ultimately respect the material. Part of the problem there is like, you get an executive and they give the executive a budget and they say, okay, your rewards, this is your budget. If you mess up and don't make any enough money out of your budget, then it'll affect your budget next year and your corporate standing and all that blah, blah, blah. So what happens is they take on some IP that they think they can make some money from. Then they will micromanage it until it's dead, and it'll fail, and they lose all their money, and the IP eventually gets like seriously damaged from that because the fandom goes, ugh. But like, it's safe to say that Dungeons and Dragons is bigger than anybody who is currently creating it. It's a legacy, so it's got a creative legacy that will continue on past anybody who's currently making Dungeons and Dragons right now. In fact, Wizards of the Coast could go out of business, all the books could stop being produced, and the hobby would continue perfectly fine. Somebody else would pick up the mantle. There'd probably be legal battles and stuff over the IP in the courts, but people would still be producing content. Thanks, Mariusak. I mean, depending on the group, it can be like that. Players' decisions and eyes can, influence game. Man, I bet this is Beholder Behind the Hills. Yep. Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, anybody who's played Dungeons & Dragons knows actually how cooperative and how much input the players actually have in the game. Honestly, as a DM, you can sometimes just sit there and have somebody say, oh, man, I hope this doesn't happen. And they're like, not exactly that, but that's definitely a much better idea than what I had. For sure, that can definitely happen. During the time of troubles, what were the angels doing? Minding their own business. Like, my red core puzzles are D&D, are D20s. Dungeons and Dragons is built into me. So if everything in the hobby failed, I would kickstart the hobby myself, It is literally one of the main aspects of my life. I have a hard time making friends with people who don't play D&D, because they're like, what are we going to talk about? Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is a lich. It's true. Yeah, the questions of angels and like who they serve and stuff is interesting. Like, what's an archon? What's an angel? If you go with like Matt Colville's angels, it's much more sort of biblical, and that's fine. But sometimes you just got to say, you know what? I don't like the way that cosmic plane operates, so I'm going to create my own thing, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, I think that should be your number one go-to, is just change things up. That would never happen. Pathfinder happens. True. Yeah, exactly. When there was a huge split in the gaming community and 4th edition came out and everybody went, ugh, Pathfinder happened. Exactly. Previously, when there was a split in the USA UK branch of the hobby, Warhammer happened and Dungeons and Dragons happened on the other side. So you could say that maybe we need massive shake-ups every now and then. We need to diversify the species. LARP on the first date. Like the way Disney ruined the John Carter IP. Give it a couple of years and everybody will forget and somebody will make another one. Much like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Somebody will make another video. Somebody will make him another movie. There'll be more Star Wars movies. There'll be more Doctor Who. There'll be more Indiana Jones. Hell, there'll probably be more Rocky movies and, Rambo movies. Somebody will probably kickstart another Terminator movie, alternate timeline with a different actor playing, Terminators. If there's even a sniff of money in it, they'll make more of it. Although I'm not entirely sure about Thundercats. That may have actually been killed. Aha, I mean attack attributes and spell slots, just the whole sheet can be adjusted in a game. Yeah. It's just a record keeping device. Everything is entirely open to being adjusted in game. If your character gets turned into a sentient sword, you can roleplay a sentient sword. Doesn't make any sense on a character sheet, but it makes perfect sense in a game temporarily. Yeah, I've played games that way, where you write your character sheet as you're making the character. Like Traveller, for instance, is kind of like that. Making the character is a mini role-playing game in and of itself. Yeah, I didn't mind the Crystal Skull either. At this point, Cameron, I will watch Doctor Who just because it's Doctor Who. It literally doesn't matter how bad the episode is, I will still watch it. Like some of the stuff with Capaldi when they were playing like fairy tale stuff, I thought that was really shit, but I still watched it. I was like, I'm watching it, drinking coffee, going, well, this is really bad. Didn't stop watching it. Didn't like, a part of me still enjoyed just watching Doctor Who. I mean, I've watched the old black and white episodes of Doctor Who where the Cybermen were basically, sock puppets. It was bad. So I appreciate the fact that they've got special effects and things, I appreciate the gift that we've got in production values these days. Hey, same thing for like people who go back and watch my earlier videos. Like, bless you, but I'm done apologizing for production values back then. Yeah, the sound quality was terrible, awful, unscripted videos and stuff. Yeah, but they are what they are. When I started out, I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I read Dragonlance. Not all of the Dragonlance, just like, the classic Dragonlance. End of the Last Home and stuff. Dragons of Autumn's Twilight. Dragons of Last Summer's Leaf Drop. Inn of the Mead Bucket. What D&D monsters are the most like the Daleks? What we need is something like a beholder in a column, or inside the Dalek, the Grell are probably mostly what the Dalek would be like. But they drive around in these constructs, which is the tricky thing. Yes, Halfling is a sword named Hot Dog. Nice. Oh, right. Yeah. No, it's not worth wrangling your family to catch it live. I think my pet peeve these days is how all of these good series are split over all the different streaming services. It's tiresome, man. It's like I want to be a well-read geek who sees all the shows, but it can get really expensive getting all that different stuff, getting all the different streams and things. Like, I want to pay money and watch the content and support the people who are making the good content, but when you have to pick up a whole network just because they've got one or two shows that you really like, it can be really annoying. Like, stop signing exclusive contracts. Like, shop out to different networks. It's okay if Netflix and Hulu and something are all running the same content at the same time. We're gonna watch it anyway, you know. Yeah, that's true, William. Thanks for the donation, by the way. Talk about this a lot in your lore videos. Angels, demons, and devils. It's hard to accept the trichotomy of lawful good with lawful evil versus chaotic evil, but explained why many times. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are there Underdark halflings? Nope, don't think so. There is the Peck. That's about a kind of like a. No, not really, not really. Best D&D movie, not The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. Let's see. Dragon Slayer, Krull, In the Name of the King, Dungeon Tale, Dragonheart, Excalibur, the Barbarian Brothers. I don't know. Lots. Best D&D movie, Book of Vile Darkness. Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. That was probably one of the best. Hey, thanks to Wool. Wizard on long trip for his guild. Takes a few steps, stops, looks around, up the street, down the street. Face goes pale, sweat pours down his cheek. In his mind, one thought, no. Turns his face to the sky. Dude, where's my carriage? Oh, man. Mazes and monsters. Conan! Yeah, Conan. I would have liked to have seen some magic items in Conan. Well, we had the crystal that the wizard was using to his support his castle of illusions. There was the horn that went into the statue of a Dagon. One could argue that the first sword that he got out of the tomb of the old king was a magical sword, due to being perfectly good, even though it's been sitting there in the tomb with puddles of water for centuries. Yeah, there was definitely magic, like mesmerism and stuff in Conan as well, and of course, a guy who could transform into a giant snake. So yeah, Lady Hawk, yep, also. The Goonies. Haha, DM, you fool, by turning me into a sword. I'm not sealed away, but placed to my full damage potential. Yeah, true. Thanks, Josh. Wait, which In the Name of the King? Because there's one with Jason Statham and one with Dolph Lundgren. There's one with Dolph Lundgren? I was talking about the Jason Statham one. Shit. I've got a whole movie I've got to go and watch. Yeah, well, barbarians used to get extra experience points for destroying magical items. Dagoth, thank you. I thought I was getting that wrong. Thulsa Doom. Turns a snake into an arrow. Yeah, that's definitely magic. Ugh. That was vicious. Who's the most evil halfling to ever exist? Pippin. That's right. Yeah, with smoke pouring out of his ears. Oh, Big Trouble in Little China. Also a great D&D movie. Yeah, I don't think I've even heard of the Dolph Lundgren one. I've probably seen something with it. Masters of the Universe, that's a D&D movie as well. Dragon Slayer is an excellent movie. It's an excellent movie. Halfling Cleric of Pazuzu. Beastmaster, yep. All great. All great movies. Far out. It's time for me to go, folks. Yeah, there's evil halflings. Time flies when you're having fun, eh? So, coming up this week, definitely skeletons. And possibly dragon magic and dragon magic items. Possibly. I may be inspired by something else. Who knows? Be safe out there, everybody. Devils... No, I don't think devils are heroes in their own minds, but they've got a huge chip on their shoulder for sure. 13th Warrior, also, yeah, great D&D movie. Be safe. See you later.